Okay, so as you may be aware, it's to be exact, it's second class of week 4. So we're half week ahead. So whether we'll keep pace with this one class ahead schedule, but we'll see. Okay. Today's topic is Korean family, and here. 이거 안 되네. So this is a more fancy title of the lecture, and this is what I'll be talking about for the next 2 classes or so. So after a brief introduction, I'll talk about the characteristics of marriage and family in Korea. And when I'll be focusing on Korea, but maybe it's a good time for you to sort of explore how characteristics of marriage and family are different in your own country. And then I move on to talking about the nature of extended family in Korea, why Korean elderlies, some of them, still live with their children. It's sort of a unique characteristic compared to the situation in the West, especially. And then 2 sort of interesting trends, and that is a high divorce rate in Korea. So Korea has sort of, when you look at the divorce rate, Korea's divorce rate is in the top 1/3 in the whole world. Okay, so that's quite surprising. And so we'll explore why so many Koreans are divorcing, especially in view of the fact that this, Confucian emphasis on family, right? That really is the bastion of one's identity and a sense of belonging, right? And then an interesting phenomenon called the empty shell marriage or ghost couples, meaning people who stay married, but they're not happy together or they're not in love with each other, okay? So we can never really find an exact data as to how many people are in this empty shell marriage, but especially in a society like Korea, where one's face is so important, and also in order to maintain a family setting for their adult children, I think empty shell marriage is universal. So the difference is one of degree. I think it's more pronounced in Korea. Okay. Before I move on, before I forget, the lecture notes for Korean culture have been uploaded. Very, very abbreviated. Okay, it's only like 15 pages, and that's how it's going to be. The lecture notes will not be like in full, but abridged. Okay, so introduction. It's Monday morning, 9 o'clock. Let's start off with something light. Can anybody answer this question? What are the 3 rings in marriage? I'll give you an obvious one. Wedding ring, right? What are the other 2? Yes. Engagement ring, wedding ring, and the 3rd ring is? Unless you know it, you're not going to get it, so I'll show it to you. Suffering. I have a few more. Russian proverb says, before going to war, pray once. Before going to sea, pray twice. Before getting married, pray 3 times. You guys are laughing at this, but wait until you get married. Well, let me not jump ahead too much. Uh, I'm not sure how to pronounce his last name, but I'll just go with Cernan. Gene Cernan stepped off the moon in December 1972 and left his footprints and his daughter's initials in the lunar dust. He is, as of now, the last man to walk on the moon. Okay, so the last time a man walked on the moon was back in 1972, December. Okay, now he came back to all these glorious parade and whatever, right? But his wife divorced him, and she left a very famous comment. She said, "Quote: If you think going to the moon is hard, try staying at home." It's sort of left out, and raise children. Okay? And I'm not saying this just because I'm in this classroom, but my wife is a stay-at-home mom, and I would never say that my job is harder than hers. Seriously. I think what mothers do at home, unpaid, right? I just know how difficult it is to manage the household, especially with kids. And I think I'm totally in tune with her comments. Okay. So the jokes in the previous slide and all of this are to show you how getting married and staying happy is a very difficult task, okay? And as you may know, if you go back tens of thousands of years, we didn't get married. See, marriage is an institution that we have invented, okay? Humans have invented, and, we talked about culture versus instinct. Is marriage something that should be, is natural for us? Or is it a sort of an institution that we have made for a certain convenience? Okay? The reason I say this is because if it is natural, if it's something really good, why are couples constantly getting divorced? And sometimes, even if they're, stay married, why they are not happy? So there must be something, fundamental questions raised about this institution of marriage. Right? Most scholars agree. Now, turning to more serious side, most scholars agree that there is no such thing as a typical family in modern societies, especially in economically advanced societies. And families today include people who live alone, single parents with children, remarried couples, cohabitors, both with and without children, step families, extended or multi-generational families, same-sex couples, both with and without children, divorced spouses who share a home because they cannot afford two separate homes. So I'm sure there could be more types of families that could be included, but anyway, this is a recent phenomenon, okay? Something that did not exist, let's say, 100 years ago, right? So Korean family today is, like elsewhere, is much different from how it used to be and includes many different types of families. For example, typical Korean family used to be an extended family, okay? But now it is nuclear family, with just parents and their kids, right? And arranged marriage used to be a dominant form of marriage as late as the 1980s. But now, of course, a majority of marriages based on non-arranged form, or you could call it based on love, I guess. And divorce and family breakup were not common in the past. As late as the 1970s, it was very uncommon, okay? But now, divorce rates in Korea have soared in the last 50 years, okay? The inescapable conclusion that can be drawn is that the Korean family is in a state of transition, okay? And the question is, transition to what? So other key questions include, how has the Korean family changed in recent years? How do many Korean elderlies live with their adult children? What are the factors for the rising divorce rate in Korea in recent years? There's a typo there. What accounts for the high divorce rate among those who have been married for more than 20 years? So I hope you could help me with this. If you could look up your own country's data, you know, I hope you could sort of tell me whether it's a universal phenomenon. Again, the highest divorce rate in Korea takes place among those couples who have been married for more than 20 years. Is that a universal phenomenon? With only Korea's data on hand, I cannot come to that conclusion, but I think it's a very unique phenomenon that is taking place in Korea. Do some couples live together even if they are unhappily married? If so, why? So the next slide is simply what I'll be doing in the next couple of classes, tackling these questions that I have raised, okay? So here we go. Discuss the institution of the family in the Korean context, look more closely at the current trends, particularly concentrating on the reasons for Korean elderlies living with their adult children, the nature of the rising divorce rates in and outside of Korea, the factors which account for the rising divorce rates, and the reasons for a considerable number of Korean couples who stay in unhappy marriages. All right, so that's an introduction, and I now turn to the second part of the presentation on the Korean family, and it's the characteristics of marriage and family in Korea. And as sort of an icebreaker, I'll start with something very obvious. Under marriage form, yes, monogamy is what is practiced in Korea, and don't really need to explain to you, right? Other than to show you that in a large majority of countries all over the world, monogamy is practiced, right? So in the blue shaded countries, polygamy is outlawed, okay? In black shaded countries, many of them in Northern Africa and the Middle East, polygamy permitted and practiced. And navy blue, many countries in Africa, polygamy generally illegal, but is still practiced, and the law is not strictly enforced, okay? And I just wanted to throw that in to highlight how Korea still remains very anti-homophobic, okay? It's a country where only a handful of celebrities have come out. Only a handful of all the celebrities, including sports figures, TV stars, and whatsoever. And so, where does that come from? This strong anti-homophobia. I mean, strong homophobia. Confucianism, okay? Because Confucianism is all about the family, right? And reproducing the family line, right? And obviously, homosexual couples cannot maintain that, right? Age at first marriage. As of 2022, the age at first marriage was 33.7 for men and 33.1 years for women, both of which were the highest ever for Korea. Okay? Now, do you think that's high or about the average or low in international comparisons? It is high, so you can see how it's been going up, right? We have data from 1960. So back in 1960, the average age at first marriage for women was 20.1 years. Okay, so that's like, this is when not too many women went to universities, right? So it'll be like out of high school and after 2-3 years getting married, right? But it's been going up steadily, and it's, again, it doesn't look like it's gonna come down anytime soon. And if you look at international comparisons, you can see that this is from 2016. This is Korea, and Korea will be ranked around top 5th or 5th ranked, right? Or at least top 10 in the whole world. Okay, so and when I get to the part on aging, this is all having a great impact on the world's lowest fertility rate that's happening in Korea today. Third characteristic I want to talk about is the trends in average household size. So back in 1970, average household size was 5.2, but as of 2020, it's down to 2.3. So this all shows you how Koreans as a whole are not having too many babies, okay? And many of them are not getting married. So this is fourth point, where increasing trend of staying single. As of 2015, almost 11% and more than 5% of men and women, respectively, in Korea, between the age of 45 to 54, remain unmarried. Do you know why we focus on this particular age group, 45 to 54? Studies show that if you have never been married and you happen to be between the age of 45 to 54, your chance of getting married is almost nil. So it's safe to say that these people will stay single. Okay? Now, what is really worrisome is, if you look at the next slide, in just 2 years, the proportion of men between the age of 45 to 54, never married, it'll reach over 20% in Korea. Okay? For women, it'll be almost 13%. And look at, 2035 and 2045. 2045, more than 1/3 of men will never get married. More than 1/3 in the whole country. And what about women? More than 1/4 of all women, not all women, between the age of 25 to 54 will not get married. Okay? It's a really serious trend. So this shows you how people are just not getting married. And the numbers in the green boxes are the number of marriages, and the numbers in the blue shaded box, they are what is called crude marriage rate. And that refers to the number of marriages per 1,000 population. Okay? So whenever you see a number like crude rate, it's usually a given number per 1,000 population. So I'll soon be talking about crude divorce rate, right? So that would be the number of divorces per 1,000 population, okay? And a similar trend. This is there are many surveys done on this type of issue, right? But the most reliable is this one done by the Korean government with a sample size in the thousands. Okay, so as you can see, the people who agree with the statement that one must get married had been declining. Okay, and a study shows that income has a great impact on whether one gets married or not. I don't know if this is universal, but you can see from this particular study that for men who make a top sort of income, their chance of getting married is how many times? 12 times higher than men making the lowest income. Okay, so but the same cannot be said for women, because even with low income, women's chance of getting married is much higher than that of men. Okay. Fifth characteristic of the Korean family is the growth of one lone person household, and I think this is also a universal trend. In 1980, only 4.8% of all the households in Korea comprised one-person household, but the figure has been increasing ever since. And as you can see here, it was only 4.8% of all the households in 1980, but as of 2021, it's more than one-third. Okay, so anyway, and I think the most interesting issue up to this point would be this. Okay, you know what this is, right? It's the number of birth to single mothers, women who are not married. Okay, and you think this is high in Korea or very low? Very low, right? If you study long enough about Confucianism, well, here is a graph, and I don't know if you can see this, but there's no exaggeration here. This real, okay? Look at Chile. 70.1% of all birth happen to be to single mothers, okay? And maybe to countries which you're more familiar with. This is from 2014 or later. France, 56.7% of all birth happen to mothers who are not married. Sweden, 52.5%. Denmark, 52.5%. Portugal, 52.3%. United Kingdom, 47.6%. Czech Republic, 46.7%. Where is the United States? It's 40.2%. And where is Korea? Right at the bottom, 1.9%. So it's perhaps the lowest in the world. Okay, so why? This strong stigma attached to birth to single mothers. You know, we still point fingers at women who give birth while not married. And it has had some serious consequences, okay? And here are some of those. Stigma against birth outside marriage in Korea has led to single mothers to either abandon them outright, okay? Second, commit infanticide. Although in small numbers, every so often we hear this news that a newborn baby was found in a garbage can or in a public washroom, right? And let's first talk about the first one, okay? Abandonment of newborn babies and the persistence of international adoption. I haven't emphasized this yet, but as of 2022, Korea is the 10th largest economy, the only country since the end of World War II which transformed itself from a developing country to a developed country. Korea is a rich country, developed, okay? Top 10 economy in the world. And yet, what do? We send our babies overseas for international adoption. It's really, really sick. And as a Korean, I'm very, very ashamed. Okay? It's like these children born to single mothers are not Koreans. Anyway, the international adoption has a sort of a painful history, right? After Korean War, which took place between 1950 to 1953, resulted in many orphans who happened to be babies born to Korean mothers. And the children were mixed bloods, like the American soldiers and Korean mothers. And so there were a lot of orphans, and also, can you say that a child who is deserted, an orphan? Anyway, those who have been adopted for international adoption were either real orphans or deserted children, okay? Especially by single mothers and poor families, okay? And the number of international adoptees to this day reportedly totals 200,000 and still counting, okay? And why do I have North Korea there? There are a few things North Korea says that it has done better than South Korea. And you know what one of them is? That no matter how poor North Korea is, it never sent a single baby or child for international adoption. Okay? And so these are pictures from the 1960s when sections of the airplane were reserved for all these international adoption babies. You know, maybe back in the 1960s and 1950s, it was, let's even say, necessary, okay? But again, for this international adoption to be continuing is really sick, okay? So these are the number of international adoptions over the years, and as late as 2020, you have 260 international adoptions, okay? Of course, to countries in North America and Europe, right? Abandonment of newborn babies at a baby box and elsewhere in recent years. So now, if this is a well-known phenomenon, okay? So any single mother who wants to abandon her a baby knows sort of where to go, and it is called a baby box. And this was founded by this pastor in Seoul, and he knew that there was this demand, and because so many, not so many, but because many babies were dying when they were improperly or abandoned at unpredictable places. So he wanted to sort of provide a safe place where babies can be anonymously dropped off, right? So from 2009 to 2021, close to 2,000 babies were left at the baby box, okay? So here we go. Here are the numbers, number of babies dropped off at this baby box. And it looks like this. It's a church slash a house, and you can see the baby box, right? So you can open like a bank deposit box, and you leave a baby there, okay? I don't know if I'll try my best. Okay. There's a short video about this baby box. Oops. Audio. Audio. 이게 왜 켜 있는데? 그러니까 컴퓨터에서 안 켜 있는 것 같아요. 아, 꺼 있네. 네, 고마워요.
The movie Broker, released on June 8th, is earning fame after Song Kang-ho won the Best Actor awards in the Cannes Film Festival. Along with the movie, Baby Box, which played a pivotal role, is sparking interest among people. The film Broker is a story about a group of people joining a special journey to find a new family for a baby found in a baby box. Then, what is this baby box?
저는 주사랑 공동체 교회 담임 목사 이종락입니다. 또 이제 베이비박스 아이들 보호하는 일도 하고 있죠. 우리 아이가 둘째 아이가 전신마비였었어요. 한 14년 동안 병원 생활했어요. 아직 병원비가 많으니까 부모님이 아이만 놔두고 이제 없어지는 아이들이 있었어요. 그 아이들이 공동체에 맡겨졌어요. 그렇게 하면서 6명의 아이들이 이제 같이 이제 살게 됐죠. 주사랑 공동체에 가면 아이들이 있는데 너무 행복해 보인다. 이게 소문이 난 것 같아요. 담벼락 밑에 공중전화 박스 밑에 이렇게 해가지고 장애인 공동체가 이게 자꾸 커지는 거예요. 아, 자칫 잘못하면 우리 대문 앞에 어린아이들 사체가 발견되고 하는 이런 두려움을 갖게 되었고 2007년에 대문 앞에 세복에 갖다 놓은 생선 박스에 담긴 아이를 보호하면서 베이박스가 만들어졌어요. 계단이 올라가자 소리가 안 나게 돼 있어요. 그러면 엄마가 왔구나. 이제 그 확인 그 벨이 울리죠. 그러면 이 문을 열면 또 이제 소리가 나요. 밖에서 아이를 열면 안에서 5초 안에 아이를 안전하게 보호가 됩니다. 한 직원은 안으로, 한 직원은 밖으로 나가요. 왜? 엄마를 만나서 위로하기 위해서 98% 만납니다. 이제 엄마의 편지도 쓰고 엄마의 마음도 이렇게 전화 받고 그래서 언제든지 찾아갈 수 있는 기회를 이제 주는 거고 또 위로할 기회를 주는 거고.
Kids temporarily protected by baby box are adopted or sent to an orphanage, and some are taken back to the parents after some counseling.
그 부모를 만나면 일단 칭찬해요. 이 아이만큼은 살려야 되겠다고 엄마가 여기까지 온 거예요. 그럼 칭찬해줘. 그리고 들어줘요. 이 아픈 마음. 자기 엄마 아빠들이 이야기를 못해. 가까운 친구한테도 못해. 여기는 네가 아무리 이야기를 해도 누가 뭐라고 하는 사람이다. 해라, 이야기해라. 그래서 이제 이 엄마들이 나중에 상담을 통해서 엄마가 키울 수 있도록 지원을 약속을 하는 거예요. 아이들 원효, 본효, 기저귀, 옷이라든지 아이들 유모차라든지 뭐 필요한 것은 어쨌든 다. 그러면 데리고 와서 키우는 엄마들이 예, 이게 16%가 지금 17%가 됐어요. 엄마는 끝까지 엄마예요. 엄마는 엄마로서의 끝까지 엄마가 되줘라. 이런 말을 하지요.
Perhaps the existence of Baby Box was spread through word of mouth. Starting from 4 in 2010, the number of babies protected by Baby Box rose, each having its own story.
제일 충격적인 거는 요 이제 뒷산이에요. 산에서 출산했어. 이 엄마가 아이의 울음소리를 듣고 난 뒤에는 도저히 이 파묻을 수가 없어서 자기 옷 벗어가지고 흙 묻은 아이 그대로 데려갔어요. 생각나는 마다 다 하면 이건 뭐 며칠 해야 돼. 2,000명이 됐으니까.
Baby Box provides multifaceted aids, and the minister couldn't solely manage everything by himself. Baby Box could have been maintained thanks to the sponsors and volunteers. We met a volunteer who has been providing a childcare service for 6 years.
사실 우리가 웃는 일이 많이 없잖아요. 정말 별것도 아닌 아이가 웃는 거에 제가 따라 웃게 되더라고요. 아이가 그냥 밥만 잘 먹어도 오 대견해. 너 오늘도 진짜 눈 뜨고 진짜 똥 싸고 밥도 이만큼 먹어서 엄청 대견하다라는 그런 응원을 하게 되고, 오히려 베이비박스를 하면서 제가 좀 힐링을 받는 좋은 그런 기운을 받는 느낌이 드는 거예요. 그 일회성으로 멈추지 않고 정기적으로 지금 봉사하게 된 이유인 것 같습니다.
The kids here are heartwarmingly endeared by the minister and volunteers, giving not less love than parents. The bright faces and behaviors of the children are the proofs.
베이비박스는 엄마들의 돋비치고 피난처예요. 정말 사랑의 보호처예요. 그리고 이 아이들이 정말 이 사회의 나라에 영향력 있는 사람으로 잘 자라서 눈물을 닦아줄 줄 아는, 남의 아픔을 아는 좀 속 깊은 사람들로 성장했으면 좋겠다는 이런 간절한 마음이 있어요.
Well, that's Baby Box, and I don't know if I emphasized this before, but if in any way if I come across as being critical, I'm being critical of the policymakers, the lawmakers, okay? Because they're the ones who have the resources to bring about positive changes to Korean society. And they're just not doing the good job, right? Or the right job. So if I had it my way, I would ban international adoption and provide subsidies to single mothers so that they could raise their children not in any disadvantaged way, right? So right now, subsidies for single mothers is $120. Anyway, this was already mentioned. But the Baby Box is mired in controversies. Advocates argue that it protects babies, right? But the opponents say that it encourages abandonment of infants. So if we had a sort of a discussion period, this would be a nice topic to talk about. And single mothers also resort to infanticide. According to the National Police Agency, from 2010 to 2020, there were a total of 116 cases of infant murder, okay? This is not really active killing. It's about deserting the babies in the mountains, you know, again, public washrooms, and so on, right? So here are the number of cases. The number of cases is not that big, right? But the fact that it happens on a seemingly regular basis shows you how there's not enough sort of warmth that Korean society shows to these single mothers and uppie single mothers. Okay, so oftentimes the parents don't know about their daughter's pregnancy to begin with, and friends even, right? Because it's so stigmatized. It is almost seen as a sin, right? Shame to the family and so on. All right, so before moving on to the next topic, any comments or any questions about this whole birth, babies born to single mothers, adoption, and so on? Okay. Next is the extended family and the elderly. Just for fun, what proportion of the Korean elderly do you think live with their children? It has to be a rough guess. Yes, 40%. I think that's a very good guess, especially if you watch enough Korean dramas. Because typical family dramas in Korea, they show, grandparents living with their adult children, right? But that is not the case. As of 2020, only about 20%. So 1 in every 5, but really good guess. Thank you. 20% of the elderly in Korea live with their children. And as you can see in these records, it's been declining, okay? Steadily. I don't know if I have another, yes. So back in 1994, more than half of all the elderlies live with their children, okay? I'm talking about adult children, okay? But it's been declining since that time to 42.7% in 2002, 38% in 2008, and back in 2018, it was 27.1%. So the question is, why do some Koreans live in, so I should say, some Korean elderlies live in extended families? Is it because they love their adult children? Or their love for their grandchildren is so strong that they want to live together? What is the case, you think? Or is it because it's the right thing to do? Well, here are the factors, and these are really based on data, right? And factors, so the number one reason is economic factor, okay? So, yes, 100 years ago, you did it because it was a cultural thing. It was the norm that, you take care of your parents by living together. That was the norm. But now, that traditional norm is no longer the case. So the reasons why Korean elderlies live with their children, number one reason is economic factor, okay? So economic factor means that the elderlies or their adult children cannot afford their own housing. That's why they're living together. That's the number one reason. Not that, and practical consideration is like neck and neck, okay? Next is practical consideration, childcare. So some parents, they don't really trust like childcare sort of services, or at one point it was very expensive. So they live with their parents, and parents take care of their children. And another practical consideration was elderly care. So if the aging parent cannot really take care of himself or herself, you live together with the aging parents, right? So I would say these two reasons are the top reasons why as much as 20% of the Korean elderlies live with their adult children. Third reason is something normative. It's something that sense of obligation, but it's very few. Okay, and fourth is affective factors, and this is also very few. Okay, so the last one is the mama boys phenomenon, or the mother who has overt love for their adult child. But again, these are the sort of the exhaustive list, but the top two reasons would be, again, economic factors and practical considerations. Next is, well, just the thought. You think parents who live with their adult children have a better, higher life satisfaction, or parents who live on their own? I'm talking about elderlies. Well, I would say the answer is A has a higher life satisfaction, okay, but by only a very small margin. Yeah. All right, now I turn to sort of a, I don't want to call it interesting, but anyway, divorce in Korea. Okay. Now, before talking about the nature of divorce in Korea, I want you to actually know about these two methods, how divorce rates are measured. And one is called ratio of divorces to marriages. So this simply counts the number of marriages and divorces in a given year and compared as a ratio. So just to give you an example, if using the ratio of divorces to marriages method, if last year there were 200,000 marriages and there were 100,000 divorces, what's the ratio of divorces to marriages? Ratio is simply divide. So you divide 200,000 by 100,000. What do you get? 50%. Right? So that's how ratio of divorces to marriages is measured. Okay? And this, at one time, the most popular method of counting divorce. Okay? The more popular method today is the crude divorce rate, and that is the counting number of divorces per 1,000 population. And when I say 1,000 population, it includes everyone, okay, including babies. Okay. So the rising divorce rate in and outside of Korea. So the divorce rate has been rising not only in Korea, but all over the world. It's a universal phenomenon, okay? The only difference is one of degree, okay? The divorce rate has been rising more rapidly in some countries than others. So this is, when you see a divorce rate and a percentage, what method is this using? Divorce rate ratio, right? So this is the kind of divorce rate method that uses the ratio method, and what it says is that in 2022 divorce rate was 48% using the method that I just explained. Okay, and the global divorce rate has increased more than 2.5 times since 1960. And also, it is true that people are getting married at a much lesser rate, as you can see here. That's the crude marriage rate. It was 8.06% in 1960, but now down to 4.86%. And the divorce rate, crude divorce rate, rising from 1.1 to 2.03. Divorce rate in Korea have been rising noticeably over the years, and as of now, nearly 1/3 of marriages end in divorce in Korea. Divorce rates jumped as high as nearly 9 times in the last 50 years. Women initiate divorces in about 2/3 of all divorce cases, and this is rather universal, not unique to Korea. So this is the crude divorce rate of Korea from 1970. So the Korea's record as far as the divorce rate is concerned is 2003, when its crude divorce rate was 3.4, and the latest figure shows that the divorce rate has sort of stabilized at around 2. Okay, but again, that's still that is still high compared to other countries. So this is one such data, international comparisons. So in this particular slide, Korea is right up there, just below the US, but the next couple of slides are more telling. Okay, so this is for the whole world, and yes, Russia has the world's highest divorce rate at 4.7. That's again crude divorce rate. And where is Korea? Ranked 25th, along with Spain. Okay, but these are the countries with the highest divorce rate. But if you look at the countries with the lowest divorce rate, quite amazing, I would say. For example, Guatemala, the divorce rate is only 0.4%. Very strongly Catholic country. As you know, the Catholic Church still does not allow divorce unless there is a serious, I don't know what issues you have to show to the church to get your marriage nullified. But anyway, so as you can see, some of the countries with the lowest divorce rates, very strongly religious countries, whether it's Islam or Catholicism, right? And what is unique about divorce rates in Korea is that the divorce rate is the highest among those who have been married for more than 20 years. And this type of divorce is called 황혼 이혼, or twilight divorce. And it also in the US or in the West, there's a term called gray divorce. Okay? And it refers to divorces involving spouses over the age of 50. And so this roughly corresponds to twilight divorce, right? Because roughly corresponds to the twilight divorce. But anyway, as of 2021, close to 40% of all divorces in Korea comprised of twilight divorces. And that's because it is argued that many couples in Korea stay together in unhappy marriages for the sake of their children. Okay? In the US, just for comparison, on average, first marriages that end up in divorce last for about 8 years. Okay? And so there's that 8 years. And what year of marriage is divorce most common? And this is in the US, okay? It is commonly revealed that there are 2 periods of time during a marriage where divorces occur with the greatest frequency. First, during the first 2 years of marriage. Second, during the 5th through 8th years of marriage. And have you heard of this 7-year itch? Some anthropologists and experts of family and divorce have been trying to understand why there is this spike in divorce rate among couples who have been married for between like 7 and 8 years. So some say the maximum time that couples can stay together happily is 7 years, okay? Given, again, such a high divorce rate among those couples who have been married for 7 to 8 years, right? Now, so just using this particular example, you can see how Korea's situation is unique, right? Again, so it's something I hope you could look up, if you could, about divorce rates in your own country and see if something similar is happening in your country where gray divorce rate is the highest. It may be at the highest, but the percentage may be very different. Okay, again, in Korea, whopping 38.8% of all divorces take place between couples who have been married for more than 20 years. Okay, and I think that is perhaps the highest in the world. Okay. So the plausibility of the 7-year itch is really not proven, but it's a fascinating theory nonetheless. Okay, something to think about. And this is so depending on the color of the line, so the this brown line is this, okay? And pink, 15 to 19 years of marriage. Sky blue, 10 to 14 years. Gray, 5 to 9 years. So, so the 2 lines you should be most attentive to are the blue line, 0 to 4 years, and brown line, married for more than 20 years. Okay? And back in 1990, highest divorce rate was among the couples who have been married for less than 4 years. And it is true that in most countries that I know, one of the highest divorce rates takes place between couples who have been married for less than 4 years. And you know why that is the case, right? The first 2 years or 4 years is the toughest time because you're getting adjusted to each other, and it's very tiring. It takes a lot of patience, and if you cannot handle it, and especially without a baby, you just call it quits, right? So that's So high divorce rate among those who have been married for less than 4 years is universal. Okay? But again, over the years, but back in 1990, twilight divorces only accounted for 5%. But it's been growing ever since. And, as of 2021, 38.8% of all divorces comprise of divorces between those couples who have been married for more than 20 years, whereas the divorce rate involving those couples married for less than 4 years was the highest back in 1990, but it's been going down to just less than 20%, right? So again, if you could find some data about your own country and if you could share that with me, I would really appreciate that. This is just a comparison of, I think some do not really match, but anyway, you can see the comparison, right, between the couples who have been married for less than 4 years versus couples who have been married for more than 20 years and getting divorced. So I have one sort of example from the US, right? And as of 2017, only 10.3% of all divorces took place between couples who have been married for more than, or who, divorces. No, this is not. This is not percent. It's a crude divorce rate. So just based on this, I cannot really tell whether this is indicating a high divorce rate among married women aged 50 plus. Okay? Maybe I should delete this after class. Well, I don't know if you know, but there are 3 different types of divorce laws. And the most popular one is called at-fault divorce. According to at-fault divorce, let's call it divorce law, you have to prove to the court that you have the right to divorce your spouse because of his or her wrongdoing. Let's say if your spouse cheated on you, that would be grounds for divorce. Or if your spouse victimized you physically or mentally, that could be grounds for divorce, right? Like abuse. Now, so, these grounds are so-called fault, right? Now, again, this is the case in most countries. What divorce law are you most familiar with, other than this? Anyone who comes from a country where the no-fault divorce law is practiced? Now, well, in the case of Korea, there are 6 grounds for divorce. So unless your spouse meets one of these criteria, you cannot divorce her or him, okay? So the grounds for divorce include, well, I already mentioned adultery, and also mistreatment, and so on, right? So again, in order to divorce a spouse, or in order to be granted a divorce, you have to prove to the judge that one of these criteria applies to your case. Okay? Now, are you all, we live in an era where human rights is talked about all the time. Now, have you ever thought about this issue? Now, do you need a judge's approval to get married? Yes or no? No, right? Now, then why do you need a judge's approval to get divorced? Isn't that a gross violation of human rights? It's something to think about, all right? Because I've always found it really nonsensical that yes, there is the issue of property division and also child custody. Those issues are separate from actually getting divorced. But anyway, I hope you could think about this issue in your free time. So, again, most countries practice this at-fault divorce law, and Korea is no exception. And these are the actual examples of court rulings on divorce cases. Again, if you want to get divorced and your spouse agrees to it, no problem. Okay? There's this, if the two sides agree, there is no issue. Okay? But the problem arises when one wants to get a divorce and the other partner does not. Okay? And these are the actual cases that were reported in the news. And you could take a guess as to what the ruling was. Okay? Inability to have a baby. So this woman, this man, wanted to divorce his wife because she couldn't have a baby. What do you think the judge's ruling was? Yes or no? These are the actual rulings. No. Don't ask me why. No was the answer. Religious differences. Yes or no? Yes. Husband addicted to online games. Emphatic yes. Wife not providing adequate care for the family due to her commitment to a religion. Yes. Refusal to perform ancestral ritual. Yes. Wife spending lavishly on cosmetics and fashions. Again, these are real cases. No. These ones are more serious. Husband who invested a large sum of money without wife's consent and lost. Yes. Wife not being courteous to her father-in-law. No. Husband who is addicted to gambling. It was similar to the first one. Couples who had no sex for 7 years. Again, this is the real case. Yes. It was a sign, the court ruling read that there was no love. Men asking to have sex too often. Yes. Refusal to have sex. So in this case, the wife kept on refusing to have sex. I mean, it's not just a few times. It's just like never almost. And the ruling was no. So I'm sure you're shaking your head on some of these examples. But again, if you happen to be a person dealing with any of these issues, and you have to wait for the mercy of the court or the law, wouldn't that make you really sick? How you don't have the right to end this unhappy marriage? And that's why I bring in this issue of human rights, right? So that's the at-fault divorce law. And I'll close today's session with this story. You don't see much there, right? Anyway, as the title of this newspaper article says, this woman was caught for burying her close friend of like 10 years. And what happened? You see, she wanted to divorce her husband, but she could not find any other grounds. Okay? So this is what she concocted. She asked her friend of 10 years to have sex with her husband. And she would have the evidence, right, of him cheating on her. And she wanted to use that to divorce her husband. And after her friend actually had sex with her husband, she was worried that her friend would go around town telling, them about what happened. So she eventually killed her friend by burying her alive. Isn't that amazing? All of this because of this law that does not allow you to take an action to maximize your happiness or to get out of unhappy marriage, right? So again, I hope you could really think hard about how this marriage law could really hinder your potential happiness, and whether you can go as far as to say that it is a violation of human rights. Okay, it's again something to think about. All right, I'll see you next Wednesday.